So, in my last few questions would be about the upcoming German elections. So, what is your assessment of the German elections, and who do you think will come out on the top? Because it's widely expected that Merz will be the new chancellor, but the AFD is polling well as well. So, do you see any surprises?
No, I think that's my assumptions as well. I think Merz will take it. I think the AfD will do very well. If they do too well, I think there will be some efforts to, again, the language, they're far right, they're extremist. I just watched this news clip this morning actually in America where they said it was the funniest thing. They said, well, and you have to realize in Germany, Hitler, he weaponized the free speech to do a genocide, which is a very strange interpretation of history. So that's why they have to limit it. But no, I think the AfD will do very well. Also on the left as well, because it's the French have a lovely term for it. I think they call it often the radical center, and I think that's what you see now. The center is now uncompromising. They pursuing economic policy which makes no sense, which deindustrializes. They say they will continue now a war against the world's largest nuclear power, a war that can't be won. Indeed, has already been lost. So you now see both on the right as well as on the left, you have these new voices, where common sense is lacking in the radical center. You see now in this vacuum, new political forces getting a lot of oxygen, growing immensely. So, of course, the right is doing much better than the left. So I think AfD will do very well, but they won't be able to take over the government. No, not yet, irrespective of how much Elon Musk wants it.
So, how would you think they'll form a coalition? Because, like you said, they'll try to definitely prevent the AfD or the new left party. I don't know the name of the party, but do you think they'll go with the Greens or the SPD again or the CSU? CSU or yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. On the left, it's I forgot their name. It's the Linke. They had some that was used to be the furthest almost on the left, but then they had some people breaking out, like Sarah Wagenknecht. I think they named the party after her, something Sarah Wagenknecht, Finnish, SVW. I don't know, something along those lines. Well, I don't see them getting a very big role either, but I think it's going to be very difficult for the traditional parties to be able to form a coalition. But it's going to be interesting. Again, it's worth pointing out that Germany has been the economic center in the EU project, and when they go, when political stability and the economy disappears there, it's going to have huge implication for the rest of the continent. But I can't really, I'm too careful to predict what a coalition will look like.
But irrespective of who takes the chancellorship, do you think that the country is going to get tougher on the migration policies? Because we saw Merz were almost tied up with the AFD to get a migration deal through the Bundestag. So, do you think the country is going to get tougher on the migration policy?
Yeah, no, I think that's just. I think what they said back in 2015 that everyone can come. I think this has been recognized to have been a mistake. It's not a winning policy either. So I think this is somewhere where everyone is going to adjust more or less. So it's going to tighten up, which is interesting in the dynamic of European politics, because countries like Hungary, who have been calling for limiting illegal migration, have been, we called many names over the past few years, but now it looks like Germany, all the main parties will begin gradually to adjust to the same mindset, because it's not only causing too many social problems within Germany, but also they don't have the economy to support all of this either, but the political instability. People are turning against it, and it polarizes the country, a political instability, and the parties which benefits from this are not the mainstream parties. So it's a good way of committing political suicide as well by refusing to adjust to the public sentiment. But to what extent, how fast, all of this, I'm not sure. But I think we're moving further away from the sentiment in 2015, where migration is a right now, asylum seekers is a right. Anyone can come if they have I think this is gone. I think this is becoming less and less ground for supporting it.
So my last question would be, do you think any Merz who's likely to be the chancellor will be able to reverse this deindustrialization? And do you see him warming up to China because relations between USA and Germany and the EU in general are fraught?
I would, if I make predictions, I would look at the general incentives, and indeed, this has been my argument for many years: the incentive of what's happening in the world. As I mentioned, though, in the unipolar world, the Europeans saw it as being in their interest to see collective bargaining power through the European Union, and then cooperate with the United States to try to effectively have a global hegemony of the political West, which is these two pillars, the US and the EU. Now, what the Europeans have refused to recognize is that as the world becomes more multipolar, the relevance of Europe will depend on being able to diversify its economic ties. So with the rise of China, this is something they should have connected with right away. They could have cooperated, help a partnership for digitalizing some of the European industries. There's a lot of things that could have been done, but instead, the Americans said, "Oh, this is a threat to our global primacy," and the Europeans they bowed along and said, "Yes, it is," and then we'll cut ourselves off from the Chinese. So over time, you see the Europeans cutting themselves off from very important centers of power. So primarily Russia, but now increasingly China, at the behest or the command of America. And you see the Europeans becoming more and more dependent on the US, economically less competitive, obviously. And now you see the political sovereignty diminishing as well. This is why it was never in the interest. So my expectation in terms of what the interest is of Europe, I would say, yes, they would start to diversify. They would start try to mend ties with Russia. They would set up a digital tech partnership with the Chinese, also have good relations with America, but try to take a more of a being independent pole of power in a multipolar system. But the ideology in the West, in Europe, it's something that undermines rationality. They're talking in cliches. They're thinking in cliches. It really depends because the Germans are in a very difficult position now, and it's not just the America turning their back on them. It's not even not just the failure to cutting themselves off cheap Russian energy, but the German economy was heavy industry, which was energy dependent, but they never successfully transitioned. As we now enter the fourth industrial revolution, all traditional industries belonging in the physical world are becoming more and more taken over by the big tech giants, the digital giants, and we don't really have anyone in Europe. So we're not competitive, and this is why the German car industry is a good example of what's happening to Germany. This was their greatness. Germans made cars. Now they can't make cars anymore, and not competitively at least. And this is why they're declining. So it's a lot that has to be done in Germany. Get your cheap energy back, but also begin to digitalize the economy. And to do this, they need Russia, they need China, and but when you listen to these people talk in Munich, they only see the world as we're democracy. They're not proper democracy. We can't work with Hitler, and so it's very difficult to mobilize the political will, not just within Germany, but within the EU, with all the other member states, to leave some of this ideology behind and take some, accept realism, accept the world as it is, and try to navigate a more sensible path. So far, I'm not seeing it. So I see what's rational, and then I see what the Europeans are doing, and I become very pessimistic.